So we are going to be talking about a little bit about the United States government and its connection to our founding fathers and their relation to the Illuminati. And exactly what now the last show I gave you a little bit of background, telling you they're born in Bavaria. They're created in Bavaria, Germany. They were an offshoot of the Masons, and that they started their own order, and that their order had, its own Satanism and Luciferian connections. Well, today it's going to be exciting because I'm going to expound a little bit about some of the conspiracy theories surrounding the Illuminati and its effect on the United States government, from the formulation of our country and the influence of the Illuminati on on the American Revolution, where we broke away from Britain. Now, and I don't know if I'm going to give you all the history behind who also funded that, because every war has to be financed, and so part of the Illuminati's grip and their main aim is to have a New World Order, where if you ever read a book called 1984, and it was written, of course, decades before 1984, there was a book, and I forgot, the book was basically saying what it would look like in 1984 if there was one world order, where there was one government and everything was one rule and people were like machines and there was no up and down class, none of that. So 1984 was based on that. Well, the Illuminati wants that. Their goal is to do away with all religion. So because in order to have mind control over people, over the entire world, you have to have no religion. Because then people are going to always want to answer to God or higher power, whatever. So you have to do away with all the religion. You have to do away with currency. People cannot have their own money. People cannot have their own land. All the land belongs to the government. So the conservative movement, it makes it sound like, the reason why conservatives are anti-socialism is because they're all freaked out that the whole world is going to turn into like 1984. But I've never heard them argue that. But that would be a valid argument. But when you think about the way that the media puts certain things out there, I was talking last week about Lil Nas X and how I believe that he's a Satanist. That's what I believe. He may not be, but I just think that by everything that he's showing me, there's good evidence to support that. What he wants us to believe about him is that he has no problem, with heresy. Y'all haven't heard that word in a long time, huh? He has no problem with heresy. And when you don't have a problem with heresy, then the people that are, it makes you look like a heretic. And back in the days of old, in the 13 and 1400s, heretics were burned at the stake. Well, there was a reason for that. When I was doing my research, I've done a lot of it, I've noticed that whenever you had Christians burning people at the stake as heretics, those were the people that were the Satanists, and those were the people that they found to be a part of these private secret orders that were doing blood sacrifices, human sacrifices. And so whenever the believers, which were the any believers, honestly, whether it was Protestant, Catholic, whatever, they would always burn the heretics at the stake because they were trying to spread Satanism. Well, that was what the Illuminati was doing. And that's why they wanted one world order. And they called themselves the Illuminated Ones because they believed themselves to be the free thinkers. Here's how they positioned themselves. They were thinking that if so long as they had their believers to think of it, they want you to believe that they are supporters of God. Okay? So, and so for those of you who are, my daddy was a Mason, so I'm not trying to offend the Masons. So the Masons, well, let me explain to you. The Masons that we see out in the public, those that are for civil service, that are about, fixing the world, all the organizations that get the nonprofit status, like we all love. We love the Masons, everything they do. The Eastern Stars, one of the oldest secret societies, all of them. We love them. But that's what the Illuminati that's what the Illuminati likes to use as the cover. Because remember, the Illuminati is branched out of the Masons. It's their own order where they took a lot of the Masonic rituals and incorporated them into their own thinking. And they disagreed with everything that the Masons were doing. And they're like, well, we love the Masons. However, we kind of want to do more of the Satanist part of it because we believe in being free thinking. And because we are so illuminated, we don't need organized religion. Well, the Masons were like, well, we don't really want to fight the organized religion. But some of the Masons did agree with that, fighting against organized religion. And some of them broke off into different orders that may not have been as extreme as the Illuminati, because the Illuminati, they were Satanists. That they said, you know what, maybe calling ourselves Satanists, since it's getting us burned at the stake. And remember, the King of Bavaria wrote into a rule after only 7 years that secret societies are now banned all over the country. And if I catch you, you're going to be executed. So that's how bad it was with Satanism and heresy and all the heretics spreading throughout the land, when they were fighting holy wars back then, really for a reason. Right now, nowadays we fight over oil. Back then we were fighting over God. So when you had the Crusaders were fighting so that we could spread the law of God and not the law of Satan across the land. Anyway, so back on that. So when you think about the Masons that we see today, well, here's the thing. Masons don't even know the secret order of the Masons. Within the Masons, there's 2 levels. Allegedly. There's the inner circle of the Masons, and then there's the outer circle. The outer circle is the one that the public sees. The people that are in the outer circle of Masons, they don't even know who's in the inner circle of the Masons. Okay? Because allegedly, if you are in the inner circle of the Masons and you only know the 2, it's like a pyramid. It's like each circle inside the circle is like a triangle, to where the person at the top of the triangle only knows the 2 people that are underneath them. Okay? So what that means is you only know the person, only the 3 of you are the only ones who know each other, period. So if any one of those Masons on the inner circle, allegedly, was to get captured or was going to be burned at the stake, and they said, tell us, everybody in your crew, who's on the inner circle, who's still having the secret society, they wouldn't know anybody except for their 2 partners and not the other thousands of people or hundreds or however many, because we don't know, however many people. So they did it that way for a reason. Well, that's exactly the same way the Illuminati operates, allegedly the same way. But when it came time to making it more Satanist, the only way for them to accomplish that was to make sure that they created division and were able to continue to sow the seed of hate amongst people across the world. So what they would do is they would cause wars between people that were not warring. And they decided that they were going to get into different governments across the world to make sure that whenever they needed a war, they could cause one at any time. They gave the example of the wars of the World War I, how it started, how Hitler was getting his teachings from the Illuminati on how to have the wicked take to do evil. So for the enlightened, any use that they need to gain their ends is what they do. That's why Hitler had no problem murdering millions of Jewish people, when the order members are bound by their oath that they will do any action asked by the order, which they may not consent to, and when seen as a whole may look like a bad thing. But even if the order says I have to do it, even if it's illegal, I'm going to do it. So when you have people in high ranks that follow the teachings of Satan, like Hitler, that are out against the Jewish people, and you have countries like the United States of America that sat idly by and watched the murder of millions of Jewish people and did not enter into the war until the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor on December 7th of 1941. When you sit back and look, United States did not have a problem seeing millions of Jews go into the gas chambers. No, it was reported in the New York Times. It was reported in the Washington Post. Yes, but guess what? Henry Ford was a Nazi sympathizer. Yes, he was. He was also part of the Illuminati, allegedly. So what was he doing? He was supplying the tanks to Hitler to be able to mow down people over there in Europe. Yeah, helping him overtake countries over there. And you know what else? J.P. Morgan was in the Illuminati, allegedly, and he was also a Nazi sympathizer. So what did he do? When the United States government said you can no longer do any banking with Germany because of the Nazis and we are against Hitler, well, they were like, oh yeah, you might be against Hitler, but we're not. We hate the Jews too. So what did J.P. Morgan do? J.P. Morgan, decided to get Hitler and loan money to him for the war that he knew that if Hitler lost the war, he was not going to be able to pay back, but he made those loans anyway and was able to raise interest. And then so when all of the pillaging and was going on for all the countries that Nazi Germany did take over, when he took France, he took Poland, when he took over the whole region, that money was going to J.P. Morgan. J.P. Morgan Chase Bank? Think about where your money goes. Think about that Ford you're driving. Think about the origins of Ford. You need to understand why the Rockefellers are the Rockefellers. Why the Fords are the Fords. Hello. When you think about the different families that were able to capitalize after the war, it was the families that were the Nazi sympathizing families that were able to make profits overseas off of the death and destruction of an entire race of people, the Jews. So the United States was not we're doing this against Hitler because of the Jews. They just did it because we got bombed and Japan brought us into the war. So you have to always be mindful of what the history of the United States is, and it's the effect of the Illuminati in our United States government. You have to understand that the founding fathers, a lot of them were Masons, and that there's a lot of significance to why the dollar bill has the pyramid on it, and why it has the eye of Minerva at the top, and why you have the triangle, and why the eagle is the bald eagle is the bird of the land. When Benjamin Franklin actually wrote a letter to his daughter in his notes when they were debating about what the bird should be, and they went with the bald eagle. And Benjamin Franklin was really perturbed by that. First, they had a bird with a longer neck, and it looked like the phoenix. But the phoenix was related to the Masons and the Illuminati. And because they said it looks like the phoenix, we don't want it to look like that. So even though we know as the framers, because Thomas Jefferson was a part of the Masons, a lot of the other founders were parts of the Masons. And so they were trying to put certain Masonic symbols and certain symbols of the Illuminati on there. And Benjamin Franklin complained a little bit and didn't like that it looked like a phoenix. So they changed it to a bird to make sure that people were not too able to confirm that it really was supposed to be a phoenix in ode to the Illuminati. So Benjamin Franklin wanted it to be a turkey. And he said that it should have been a turkey because it's a more noble bird. And I know this is a little bit of history, but his reasoning was because the turkey is actually a bird that is native to the land, and it's a more noble bird because the eagle watches other birds down below gather and fish and put all of their fish on the perch getting ready to eat. And the eagle sits on high, and as soon as the food is in the nest, the eagle swoops down and steals the food, and that's how they hunt. So the eagle is kind of a thief. So I get it, but yeah, I'm glad we're not the turkey. I mean, Benjamin Franklin kind of looked like a turkey, so that's probably why he had an affinity to the turkey. But, the number 13, it was symbolic because, the number 13 is a number of destruction, and it has really negative, evil dealings. But if you notice that the number 13, there are the 13 original colonies was for a reason. It's alleged that the reason why there was another colony that they didn't want to include. That was going to be the 14th. They wanted to keep it at 13 to make sure that it was an ode to the Illuminati. And that's why they have the 13 stars on the toes of the eagle, on the arrows. You know what I'm talking about? On the, I don't know how you go, on the shield, they have 13 stars. And then you have the Illuminati involved, and I guess an ode to the Illuminati in the shape of the Pentagon, with it being basically it could be a 5-star pentagram. That was an ode to the Illuminati as well. So in the government buildings, they say, if you look on the Statue of Liberty, and if people don't know the story about the Statue of Liberty, if you look down, the Statue of Liberty was a gift from France. And at first, when it was delivered, it was rejected because it was a giant statue of a black woman slave in shackles. So that, yes, Lady Liberty was a black woman slave in shackles. She was not some white woman with flowing Euro hair with a blindfold on with some nice draping Grecian robe on. Yeah, she wasn't. No, she was a black woman in shackles. The United States was like, oh, that's way too telling. We don't want you to put a mirror up to our faces right now. Plus, that's not going along with really what we want everybody else to see us as, because this is New York, where we're letting the immigrants come up here. When they come here, we're not letting the slaves dock over here. So the slaves dock in the southern ports. And since they're docking in the southern ports, we want to go ahead and make sure we keep New York to make her look like a regular woman who's just coming over here voluntarily. So, but if you go up close to the very bottom of the Statue of Liberty, the French sculptor did one on him. Now, he was like, okay, that's fine. America, you don't want us to tell your history? Okay. We're going to pretend you're not who you are. So he did another one. And guess what? He kept the shackles and put shackles at the bottom of the ankles. And so the dress at the bottom of Lady Liberty and the Statue of Liberty at the very bottom is like a piece of her foot sticking out just enough to show her ankle, where you can see the chain of slavery on her ankle. Yes, he did. Won't he do it? Because see, the French were like, America, you don't try to get to act like you didn't have slaves. This needs to be a part of your history forever. Because you see how they like to rewrite history. They want to make it. They want us to pretend that something did not exist that really did happen. So if you all of a sudden, that's why we have to make sure that with the systematic rubbing out of Black history and brown history and the effects of racism and what happened in all of our history in the United States in our public schools, and if we don't do something to protect it, then we're going to be in a world where people are not, number one, the Black and brown kids are going to be relegated to Black History Month and not understand why we have a Black History Month. Unless they go to like a private school and then they're teaching it there. But apparently there's a lot of white flight going on at private schools because a lot of these rich white folks don't want to hear about what happened to George Floyd. And they don't want their little kids having to hear about Breonna Taylor. They don't want to hear it there. So they're pulling their kids out of these schools, or they're the ones who are fighting that cause and saying we want to get rid of teaching about race in schools. You know how they feel like they won. And I really believe that this is in response to the Confederate statues being removed. Yep, that's what I think. I honestly think that the good Southern white people are upset that across the country, in response to the uprising that Black and brown and white, underprivileged, underserved people have done since the George Floyd murder that was televised for all of us to see, then that means we need to all make sure that we stop the Black and brown people from making it too much about them and giving them too much power. So we want to make sure our kids don't have to learn about none of that crap in school anymore to get them back. If we don't get to have General Robert E. Lee, if we don't get to have General Lee at Virginia anymore, then we're not going to be teaching about Breonna Taylor. That's what they said. That's what's happening. Okay, so we have to go to commercial now. So otherwise we can't pay the bills. But I hope you like this. I'm giving it to you today. I'm going to give you some more about these secret societies in a minute too. All right. Yeah, so you have a lot of white flight going on in the private schools. You know what? Come on out here to the general population. Come on out here with us scrubs. I'm over here in the public school realm. You know, and I have to say, I like public school. First of all, it's free, number one. We love free school. Number two, the teachers all have degrees. That's always great. Number three, those degrees mean they had to get a whole bunch of training somewhere and do a whole lot of teacher in service before they got to be teaching in the classroom. There's a whole lot of boards that have to approve things in the public school system. Here's what you get in private school. Whoever has the most money in any situation wins. Or you want somebody's cousin is teaching in the classroom and they don't have a teaching degree. Somebody's auntie is still teaching in the art section and she never took a pottery class in her life. Private school, oh, we don't have teams for that. We don't have that team. See, you all sit up there, sending your kids to some of these private schools, paying all this college tuition money for somebody learning third grade English. You're looking dumb. In today's climate, if your kid is going to end up sitting right next to the kid that graduated from Harvard, who cares about it anyway? Because some of y'all out there sent your kids to private school, you spend $100,000 on elementary, you spend $100,000 on elementary, then you spend another $100,000 on middle school and high school. And then you're sending them to college, they graduate from college, and then they become teachers. They told you in first grade they wanted to be teachers. If your kid tells you in the first grade, I want to be a teacher, or I want to have my own company, why do you need to go to private school? You don't need to go to private school for that. You go to public school. You want to work for yourself? Okay. You can go to any school for that. You want to be a lawyer? You go to public school for that. I went to public school, public undergrad, public law school, public elementary, public middle school, public high school. I'm all public. Hell, my Facebook is public. Yeah, I see nothing wrong with it. So I don't understand why you sit up there going into debt paying for private schools. I'm gonna talk about that in a minute. But I got to talk about the Illuminati. And then, you know what I'm going to do? Since it's 11:30, I'm going to spend another, just a little bit on the Illuminati because I really want to talk about let me go ahead and, I want to give them the list of the Illuminati. I'll go into my public school rant at the end of this though.
You ready?
Not yet. Give me another song.
Okay.
I have to go to, so yeah, I have my whole thing about public school. I'm a public school proponent. I feel like you have a great education, you have a great social education, a great academic education. It teaches you about money. It teaches you about economics. It teaches you about the haves and the have-nots because everybody's in the same pot. It teaches you about the how it looks when people are all put in one big pot and they're made to get along. That's what I like about it. Because, baby, if you can survive the jungles of a public school, especially nowadays with Twitter and the Instagrams and the social medias, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. If you can survive public school, you can make it. You can make it in college. See, those of you who went to private school, I don't know if you're gonna make it in public school. That's what happened on the Housewives. Them doctor up there, she on the Married to Medicine, she went up there, had 2 houses, her and her husband. Kids going to private school. I don't know where they went to school, honestly. And then going up to Howard and only spent 30 minutes up there and had to come back home, sit at home looking stupid. But they probably spent $150,000 on private school education and got a kid went to college and came back home in 30 minutes. Yeah, that's what'll get you. So why even pay for that? Why not just make school free? So if your kid ends up being a college dropout, you're not mad. You didn't spend any money. They went to public school. No harm, no foul. You want to be a college dropout? You might be Kanye. You just might be. They could be lucky. They might be Instagram famous. They might be like the girl that's the diet girl that's dating the guy that's the billionaire now who's going through his divorce. You could be Instagram and be a millionaire. You don't need a private school, elementary, and listen. We can talk about that. We can debate it. That's an It's Debatable. I can make that the It's Debatable topic for today. You know? Yeah, that's what I'll do. If you want to debate me on the public school versus private school education, you can. If you want to. I'm going to make that the It's Debatable.
You're going to go into that right now?
Yeah. So first I'll go into why I think what I think because people are going to think I'm crazy. Nobody agrees with me out there. So before we do this, see, now we're going to throw them off because we're going to talk about something other than, it's okay. It doesn't matter. They'll be okay. They'll be able to survive because, people need to understand that the private school, public school education, it's all the same. It's the social aspects of it that are different. Your books are your books, your tests are your tests. You're all going to end up at the same universities anyway. It doesn't even matter. So that's I'm like, so let me go ahead and put out to the radio world and to my 13,000 people on Instagram that are going to now hear me say, I'm not a proponent of private schools. So Betsy DeVos, she used to get on my nerves. When she tried to privatize education, when she was under Trump's administration, talk about her dumb butt anyway. I'm glad she's sitting at home with a $100 million yacht. She was like here we go. Let me take these out of my ear. Somebody's about to talk about education. I wonder if my girlfriend out there, I'm ready to go on.
You are.
Okay, hold on. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you were able to enjoy that last segment on the Illuminati. But I have to put a pause on that because we are going to pick that back up at the next show because I said I was doing the Illuminati all month long. I'm going to make the It's Debatable segment today dealing with social justice. And I'm going to call this social justice because it's about education. Now, when we were under Betsy DeVos's administration under Donald Trump, when she was the Secretary of Education, she was trying to privatize public school education and get away with public school and make it all based on going to having some company run the schools. So got rid of Betsy DeVos. She's out. And now we have a new person. Do we have a new person? Whoever we had the interim is back on the public school terrain. Well, here's the debate. I am a proponent of public schools. I do not see, and I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of people that disagree with me. I don't see I see some value in private school education. I do. My daughter went to private school for just a couple of years in elementary, but that was only because at her particular private school, they were doing some old racist bullcrap. So I had to pull her out of there and send her over to the black private school. Yes, I did. Yes, I did, ladies and gentlemen. I pulled her right over there from the white folks that are being racist to her and the racist administrator over there at the school that I was at. I didn't go ahead and try to blow up the school board. No, I didn't. I pulled my little black girl child right up out of that white folks classroom and I put her right over there at the Imani school, right over there in Houston, Texas. Yes, I did. In the middle of the semester and got my little Kennedy right up there learning about the Lord and with a black teacher surrounded by little black kids that look like her and wearing uniforms. Now that was great. That was in a rescue mission that I had to do because I've always been a proponent of public school education. I believe that you do not necessarily get anything there's no benefit that you will derive from a public school education that you cannot also derive from a public school. Did I say that wrong? There's no benefit from a private school education in K through 12 that you cannot derive from a public school education. I said that because I went to public elementary school. I went to public middle school, public high school, public undergraduate school and got my degree, and I got my law degree at a public school. And as a matter of fact, I went all in. Let me tell you this. I went to all majority white elementary, majority white middle, majority white high school, and I went to majority white undergraduate school, Texas A&M. It might be one of the whitest institutions in the United States of America. I believe when I went in 1990, it must have been 3 black people, and I was one of them. I'm just joking. And it was blacker than that. But for my law school, I went to TSU. So I went to an HBCU. So everybody was black there. So I went to everybody was white and everybody was black. So I got the best of both worlds, but everything was a public school education. Now, fast forward to what happens when you go to law school at an HBCU law school and you go to an all-white majority undergraduate school, that's Texas A&M University, which is a Division I school, and then you go to a law school that's not a private law school, it's not Ivy League, it's not a Division I, whatever Tier 1 school, and it's a little black law school there on the corner. Well, what happens when it's time to get the job at the law firms in the clerkships? If there's 3 years of a law school program, let me just give you a little bit of knowledge. There's 3 years of law school. At the end, at the summer between the second year and the third year of law school, you do a clerkship. You go and you work for these big giganticon law firms for 6 weeks at a time. And you work 6 weeks at one firm and 6 weeks at another firm. If you're lucky, they're paying you some ungodly amount, like $2,000 a week. Yes, that's what they're paying. And they reserve those spots usually for the top 5% or the top 10 people of each law school class. So your girl, I was number one going into those. So I got to work at those big firms. Well, guess what? Guess who I was sitting next to at my clerkships? I was sitting next to Harvard law students. I was sitting next to one of my new close friends, a Stanford law student. Oh, Georgetown law. Oh, Syracuse law. Oh, Yale law. And you look at, and there was Thurgood Marshall School of Law sitting right up there next to Howard. But guess what? I didn't have the law student debt that was going to go along with that Harvard, that Stanford, that Georgetown, that Syracuse, none of that. I'm going to have that now. I was going to have some debt. But guess what that told me? That my two parents, who raised 3 daughters that all went through public school education, and my mother was an educator, and she was a teacher, and then she was a high school counselor in the public school system, and even my mother-in-law retired from being a teacher, and she was a teacher for for 35 years in the Houston Independent School District. It told me this: all you need to learn to do is read. Period. If you learn to read, it doesn't matter where you learn to read. It doesn't matter who teaches you how to read. It doesn't matter what the school building looks like where you learn to read. All you need to learn how to do is read. Once your parents find that school that can teach you how to read, it doesn't matter about the trappings of the school. Because if you read the books that they tell you to, no matter what school you go to, and you read if you read whatever the teacher tells you to and do your homework like she tells you to, it doesn't matter that your mommy and daddy are paying $5,000 a semester for 3rd grade or $10,000 a semester for your 11th grade. My parents didn't pay anything at all. And I was sitting next to Harvard Law School students. And guess what? When it came time to decide who they wanted to give the permanent jobs to at the end of the summer, I got offered the job and I took it. So once I graduated from Thurgood Marshall School of Law, and once my Harvard friends graduated, and my Syracuse and my Georgetown law friends graduated from all their schools, we all ended up at the same law firm, doing the same law books. Because guess what? Harvard Law Library has the exact same books as Thurgood Marshall's library. So it doesn't matter how much you spend on your education. So don't be out there, and it's not like, you don't look down on people. If you're on your private school perch sitting on a mountain on high, somewhere out there, feeling like you can look down on those people who went to public school, you probably don't need to look down too far, because we're looking up at you, looking up at all the bills you're stacking up, you dummies. It just doesn't really make sense. If your kid is an academician, your kid is going to thrive no matter where they are. And let me tell you, no amount of money can make your kid smarter. No little, they don't accept resumes in high school. They don't care where your kid went to elementary school. And if they care where your kid went to elementary school, that school is dumb. Because that means they want to know how much money you paid and how much money they can bilk out of you new parents to this new high school, so that you can make sure that your kid gets all A's. Because when your teachers are paid based upon parent fundraising, it's a little bit different. They're, number one, not getting paid the same amount as the teachers in public schools. They can't command those big salaries, because they work for the parents. And listen, at any moment, you need to make sure that you're not throwing good money after bad. You may have a raggedy kid. If your kid is raggedy, let the public school teacher whip him into shape. Don't go spending $10,000 on your kid when you know they ain't about nothing. You know when your kid is going to be a loser. You can spot a loser a mile away. Sometimes it's your own kid. You might have been a loser too. You might be like, well, like mother, like daughter. She's just like me. She ain't going to be no good. But if you're a person out there that's looking down on people because their kids went to private school, well, baby, come look down on me right over here. And look down on my kids because they're going to public school too. I pulled my daughter out of the private school that she was in. I said, okay, now that you've gotten a couple of years under your belt under this private black school, everything's great. Well, guess what? Everybody ain't black in the real world. Now that you finished those grades, we're going to middle school with the public school, because you need to be able to see some Latinos, some Asians, some white people. You need to be around a lot of Jewish people. You need to be around a whole bunch of everybody. You need to be with some illegal kids. There's some kids that are going to school illegally. You need to be with the kids that are going to school legally. You need to go with the kids on the lunch program, kids with their own lunch boxes. You need to be around a little bit of everything, and that's what in public school. Here's my public school soapbox, and here's why I'm such a proponent. The teachers work hard for that $25 that they're making, because they don't make crap. When you have teachers in the classrooms that are the good ones, don't let those raggedy ones that go ahead and try to have affairs with the kids, those dummies. They're in prison now. Don't worry about them. Somebody always handles them. I'm talking about the teachers that wanted to be teachers, that when you were playing in grade school with your friends, they always wanted to be the front up there teaching y'all. When y'all were all in the third grade, they wanted to be playing class. Some kids were playing doctor, other kids were playing class. There was always one that wanted to jump up and be the teacher. Those are the ones that are usually the teachers right now. And now they're jumping up and teaching our kids. And sometimes our kids are bad. They talk back at home. They talk back at school. Sometimes they roll their eyes at home. They roll their eyes at school. But those people have your kids for at least 9 hours of every day for free. And they don't get paid yet enough. They're always having a campaign. They got these dumb butt governors up there talking about you don't need to wear a mask. They're not making a lot of money. They're not giving them the things that they need inside the classrooms. They're always making teachers spend their own money to buy their own decorations. You know, my mom used to always have to spend our own money on her classroom stuff. They had the budget in the 70s. They don't have the budget in the 2000s. So the teachers have it hard, but they love what they do. And when they're good at it, they're great at it. So the public school teachers, hats off to you. So you parents out there, you private school teachers, y'all sit up there. All y'all are doing is trying to shuck and jive to the parents to make sure the parents like you. It is basically y'all are cheerleading. Y'all are sitting up there acting like everybody's child needs Ritalin, or everybody's child needs a whole bunch of drugs. See, here's the difference. Private school teachers and private school administrators, what I find, they like to put kids on a whole bunch of medicines. They like, well, maybe your child needs to think, They look, because, private school parents, here's how I put them in a box. A lot of them go to therapy. They're so rich. They have all this great insurance. They're like, do I sound like a Karen? I'm trying to sound like a Karen. They have all this wonderful insurance. And so they're able to go to their therapist, and they put their kids in therapy, and they put their kids on all these drugs, and their kids half the time they don't need it. And they've been talking to the people at the private school, and the administrators say, well, maybe we need to put little Johnny and little Sarah on some of these drugs. And they don't really need that. Private school teachers, here, you acting up, go to the office. You just need to send the kid to the office. They call the parents. Guess what? Johnny Cake straightens up. Sarah straightens up. You don't need drugs for that, baby. You just need that parent to be called. In public school, those teachers know, if I call your mama off that shift job, and she has to leave her job where she hates her boss anyway, and they got to come pick you up for cutting up, your mama already told me she was going to whip you in the parking lot. Do you want me to call her? I know that's what they're going to do. See, that's why you need to send your kids to public school. Because at public school, you're going to have some teacher that takes a keen interest in your student. Now, unless, of course, you have those racist neighborhoods where, now, they always have that one racist teacher, where she may say the wrong thing. They're like, the colored students in here. Now they had some, or the racist teacher that's been, the ones that cut the black kid's hair, the one that cut the little biracial girl's hair. Yes. There was a little biracial kid that got her hair cut off by the teacher. And there's a little black boy that had some dreads that the white lady cut his dreads off. Well, I'm not talking about those teachers. I'm talking about the good ones. The multicultural ones. The teachers that you see on the TikTok videos trying to do the dances with the kids. I like those teachers, the kind that will tell your mama and call them or text them. I used to get text messages. I don't get text messages anymore because my daughter knows. Don't cut up. You don't want me up there because I'm embarrassing you in front of your friends. Let's bring back the days of embarrassing our kids. Let's bring back the days when your mama used to bring the belt up to the school. Don't make me bring this belt up to the school. Don't make them have to call me. That's the way I start off every year with my daughter. That's what I used to do in elementary school. I used to take my daughter. Me and Eric would take our kids on the first day of school before and talk to the principal, the vice principal, and her teacher. And I would give them the lecture. I say, Dr. So-and-so, Vice Principal so-and-so, I just want you to hear this. Kennedy, let me tell you something. Both the principal and the vice principal, they can whoop you for mommy, which is really a lie, but Kennedy didn't know that. And they knew it was a lie too, because I told them that too. They can whoop you. Now, if I can't get up here fast enough, I told them to whoop you. So, at any moment, don't you cut up, because they're going to be coming. They're going to come from me. Oh, yeah, I used to put the fear of God in Kenny. Well, see, I didn't have any problems after that. Because when your mom tells you in kindergarten, first, second, and third grade, and fourth grade, in front of the principal and vice principal, that they have permission to beat your behind at the school, and then you know your mama's going to come up there with a belt and whoop your behind in the parking lot, well, then you usually don't have any behavioral issues. So I never had any problems out of my kid at school. So that's why Kennedy's perfect. That's why I said, now that you've been raised the right way, now I can send you out there, sheep and Mr. Wolves, up to call the middle school, baby. Middle school, public school is where Kennedy is now. I don't have behavioral issues. I don't have problems, because guess what? She's got the fear of mama in her, and she thinks everybody's on the whipping board. So shout out to those people in public school. It's debatable if you have a problem with public school. Too bad for you. Betsy DeVos is gone. Your one lone champion is gone. Shout out to all the public school teachers out there. Shout out to my mom, Joyce Davis. Shout out to Shanidria Wagner, who is a former public school teacher who now teaches kids French and Spanish. And yes, she's Black. She is wonderful. She's multidialectical, and she got her French degree from Texas A&M University. Shout out to Shanidria. All right, she teaches, and I'm shouting her out because she teaches everyone. She teaches Black, white, Asian, everybody. She teaches English as a second language. She also teaches Spanish and French, like I told you. She's right over there in Pearland. She used to be an Alvin ISD educator and Pearland ISD educator to teach everyone's kids. And her website is, I think it's Spanish, etc. You can find Shanidra Wagner, and I'm going to share her link on my page, because I'm going to sign up for her French class. Yes, because I'm a Francophile, honey. I love the French, because they used to love Black people back in the day. Josephine Baker, hello, Louis Armstrong. So since the French have always loved the Black, and since the Black woman in slavery as the real Statue of Liberty, shout out to the French. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.